Well, happy Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day. Happy Divine Feminine Appreciation Day. How about that? Happy Creativity Day. Happy whatever you want to call it. How many moms are here? Okay, yeah, raise your hands. Grandmas? Yeah. Stepmoms? Mr. Moms? Come on, okay, see? Okay, good. How many here have given birth to an idea? Oh, come on, everybody's hand should be up. A company, an invention. How many here were born? Okay, so this is what we're celebrating today. We are celebrating the energy of the divine feminine. And Ernest Holmes said this: we are accustomed to thinking about fatherhood of God. Jesus often talked about our Father, which art in heaven. And very often, when we pray, we begin our prayers with our Father. But must there not be, equal with fatherhood of the infinite spirit, also the motherhood? For in the creative process of life, there is a blending of the two. There must be spirit which speaks the word of creation, and there must be cosmic matrix which molds the divine idea into form and into experience. That's what we're talking about. So today is Mother's Day, which started as an idea in the mind of Julia Ward Howe. It's an interesting story. Julia Ward Howe is the author of the Battle Hymn of the Republic, which is kind of a violent song if you read the lyrics to it. But after seeing the devastation of the Civil War, the death and the disease and the famine and the poverty, she began advocating for a Mother's Day for peace back in 1870. And in the 1870s, she was very interested in the women's movement, and particularly the women's suffrage movement, and she was interested in the Franco-Prussian War, which was going on at the same time. And she looked at this war, and she was just aghast, and she just kept asking herself, why do nations do this to each other? Why is it that we, send our best and our brightest and our young people off to die? And so she began thinking about, would it not be possible for women to do something on behalf of humanity? And in women in that day and age were not meant to do these kinds of things. They were really meant to stay confined in the home. They weren't supposed to be going around giving speeches or working for political change. Howe, however, really wanted to find a way for women to express what she thought was the innate nature of love for God and for humans. And she thought being a mother was a really powerful experience, and having been a mother, no woman would willingly see her son off to war to be slaughtered. So she began to organize on behalf of this Women for Peace Day. Her theory was that men just seemed innately aggressive. And the only hope for civilization was for women to speak in a different tone. So she held peace conferences all over the world, in the United States and Britain. And by 1872, she began to proclaim June 2nd every year as Mother's Day for Peace. So it was originally a day for women to come together to call men and to call the world to the necessity of living in peace rather than giving into the ravages and the aggressions of war. So this Mother's Day for Peace was not a day to go out to lunch. But that's nice. But it was not a day just for flowers and candy. It was a day of activism. It was a day for women to call people, the countries, and leaders to their integrity, to peace. And it was really that kind of activist thing. So it was informally adopted back by 1873, and there were at least 18 cities in the country that celebrated it, plus there was Rome and Constantinople, and that was kind of about it. She never succeeded in getting it adopted at a congressional level or at a presidential level. And so what happened was it was celebrated throughout the 19-teens somewhat, and then it sort of faded out. But the Mother's Day that we know today comes from another woman, this woman, Anna Jarvis. She knew about Howe's work, and she was a West Virginian, and she persuaded her church to celebrate Mother's Day, and it started to catch on at that point. By 1912, Congress had declared Mother's Day a kind of official holiday sort of thing. And it wasn't exactly what Julia Ward Howe envisioned. It was more of what we have today. But Julia Ward Howe's activism that our children not be killed every time countries disagreed is something that is still with us. She was one of the most courageous women of her time in history that people may or may not really know about. And in fact, I just finished reading this book for this talk called 4,000 Years of Uppity Women. Yes. By Vicki Leon. And it was a fascinating tour through history of women who did amazing things, none of whom you've ever learned in school. They say that history is written by the victors, and that is true. But what we also know is that history is mainly written by men. And this is not a male-bashing talk by any means. I'm just saying we cannot continue to ignore the contributions of half the people on the planet. Okay? So with that said, women have taken leading roles throughout history, or herstory, if you want. Okay? Being a scribe in ancient Mesopotamia was like being a lawyer. It was really a male-dominated field at the time. And yet, Amat Mamou was a woman in this field for over 40 years, back in 1700 BCE. She was so good at what she did, she opened up her own company, and she began to hire only women to be scribes. In her long career, she left a treasure trove that we have to this day of legal letters, of laundry lists, of school curriculum, of business dealings, all written down, all recorded. There was a woman pharaoh. Does anybody know that there was a woman pharaoh? Hatshepsut. Yes, around 1518 BCE. She went from being queen to being pharaoh after her husband died. She just sort of took over the job. Fake beard and everything, the big, long, phony beard. She ruled for 22 years, peaceful rule, until the next generation took over. I think it was her nephew who probably, retired her. There were ancient women historians, philosophers. There were women athletes who competed in the Olympics. There were performers. Fast forward to the Middle Age. In the Middle Ages, there was Rabea, a Sufi poet and writer. We all know Rumi, but do you know Rabea? There were women Viking ship captains, Russian queens, Hildegard of Bingen in the Middle Ages, a nun, a songwriter, a poet, and a healer using natural herbs. Then there was Eleanor of Aquitaine, Joan of Arc. On to the Renaissance, women like Mother Ursula. She was a witch. She was also a seer, a prophetess. They called her the female Nostradamus. Women owned and operated printing presses in this time period. They were artists and performers. Chiome was a female ninja who started a school for women ninjas who worked as spies during Japan's 1,000-year medieval period. There were women composers, and who can forget Queen Elizabeth? Countess Ana de Osorio brought quinine from South America to Spain to help the malaria outbreak in Spain. Then there are women of the New World. Lady Mary Wortley Montagu Day should be celebrated every year on May 26th, on her birthday. She single-handedly saved thousands and thousands of people with her smallpox inoculation she brought back to England from Turkey back in 1719, fully 80 years before Dr. Edward Jenner discovered the smallpox inoculation. When the epidemic jumped the Atlantic and came to the New World, it was only because of her, Lady Wortley's inoculations, that our founding fathers survived, because they had all been inoculated. Imagine what the country would have been like if they'd all died. Then there were woman pirates. You know, there were female pirates of the Caribbean. Anne Bonny and Mary Read. The Revolutionary War called women Molly Pitchers. I know you've heard of the expression, but they did more than schlep water to the battlefield. They kept the cannons clean and firing. They also did surgery on the battlefield. Mary Young Pickersgill sewed the flag that we call Old Glory, that was still hanging there and gave Francis Scott Key the inspiration for the song. And no, it was not Betsy Ross. Betsy just had better publicity. Then there were women like Sybil Luddington, who galloped twice as far, twice as fast as Paul Revere to tell people the British were on the move, and she didn't get captured by the British like Paul did. Throughout history, women have broken through barriers placed before them. Why? Because they didn't take no for an answer. They didn't take no for an answer. We cannot let the voice of the world dictate to us what we can and what we cannot do. We cannot let the voice of the world tell us we cannot do what desire and dreams tell us we must reach for. We cannot stop living short of our best life ever because someone at some time told us we were too fat, or we were too short, or we were too old, or we were too stupid or slow, or whatever, fill in the blank. They told us that. We were too something to be able to fulfill our dreams. This is not a talk for women. This is a talk for everybody. This is a talk for all of us. It is a talk to address anyone who was ever devalued or denied or diminished by the voice of the world, even if that voice is now coming from inside of our own heads. The voice of the world does come from outside. When we're little, it comes from our parents or our grandparents or teachers or well-meaning adults around us, and it might come once or twice, or it might come our whole childhood. But then it's up to us as adults, when we mature, to dismiss that voice in our heads, to dismiss that misguided voice of our past, and to know and to practice the truth of our being. We are whole, perfect, and complete. When we don't take no for an answer, we're standing in our truth. I am, whatever comes after that is my affirmation in life. I am, whatever is your affirmation. I am, we state our affirmation in prayer. In the realization step, we know and accept, fill in the blank, whatever comes after that. We claim it is already done, and so it is. We don't stop and ask, are we worthy? Mother, may I? If it's not too much trouble, would ya, could ya, God? We don't do that. We state with firm conviction. We know and accept in our hearts, and it is already done. You know, last week we spoke to abundance as a quality of God, and it is. And we inherit those qualities just by being informed. Just by being spirit-clothed and housed in a body, we come with all of the qualities of God. And it is up to us to express them. We're born with all of them, not just some of them, but all of them. So if our affirmation is abundance, wealth, so it is. The universe says, yes, you may. Yes, you may. If our affirmation is creativity in the form of a new career, the universe says, yes, you may. And so it is. If the affirmation is balance between work and play, we state that affirmatively, and the universe says, yes, you may. And so it is. If our affirmation is freedom to have the resources to live the life that we desire, we state it affirmatively, and the universe says, yes, you may. And so it is. If it is joy at the happiness of being alive, you state it affirmatively, and the universe says, yes, you may. And so it is. See how this works? These women made history, even if we never heard of them. Even if we never heard of them, these women made history. They didn't ask permission. They didn't ask God, would you, could you, if you're not too busy, can I have this? They stood, they affirmed their good, they moved their feet, and they manifested the life they desired. They didn't take no for an answer. They didn't let the voice of the world stop them. They didn't let convention of the time stop them. The universe always says yes. The universe always says yes. Ernest Holmes said, in a certain sense, we are all mothers giving birth to a new thought, new ideas, and new events. For in a certain sense, the mind of every person is both mother and father to the events and the circumstances and the conditions that take place in his or her life. In a very definite sense, the mind becomes impregnated with ideas. And in just as definite a sense, the impregnated mind nurtures the ideas into form. That's what we are. That's who we are. That's what we do. And the only good that we will ever demonstrate in our lives is the good that we affirm, embody, and believe we can have. Believe it. You can have it. The universe says, yes. Yes, you may. Yes, you may. Don't ask. Affirm. Don't supplicate. Affirm. Be the voice of God in your life. Affirm your good. Speak it out loud. Own it. Embody it. Live it. Demonstrate it. Manifest it. Because the universe says, yes, you may. Yes, you may. Thank you.